Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Joker's Wild.
And Goofy Yuck Yuck.
And welcome to the podcast where we pay tribute to a man who has carved his way into the heart of Walt Disney Imagineering and pay tribute to the work and the legacy along the way. That's right, it's the Joe Rhode career retrospective. Ooh boy. All right, folks. So this is a big one. Because of course Rhode announced his retirement effectively starting January 2021, and I gotta say this is like a big heart of Disney and Imagineering just kind of leaving the company for better or for worse, and we'll see what happens going forward. And I'm not saying that there's no Imagineers in the company that have Joe's spark. I'm sure that there's people who will step up to the plate in that regard. But man, especially after the Imagineering story, like it just seems like this guy has crafted such a brand for himself that this really does feel like the next Tony Baxter retirement in terms of like a passing the torch kind of moment.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is.
Yeah, 100%. This is like the first Imagineer of that Tony Baxter caliber to retire since then, I think.
No, absolutely.
So guys, we're going to frame this conversation kind of around Animal Kingdom because Animal Kingdom is Rhodey's baby in many respects. He kind of built that park from the ground up. Every major expansion that happened with that park, he was also involved in. So to get there, we have to go all the way back. All the way back in 1980, the mysterious land of 1980. Not even 1986, back even before then. It's the development of Epcot as a model designer and scenic painter for the park's Mexico Pavilion. So isn't that interesting that Mexico is kind of like the genesis point, like the starting map, the start of the map, if you will, for Rhodey's adventures in Imagineering. I think that's very, very appropriate given how immersive and how cultural the Mexico Pavilion really is.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that that's where he would start. It's very on brand for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that out of all of the World Showcase pavilions, it's one of the more immersive ones, especially that opened whenever in 1982.
Yeah.
Whenever Epcot opened. Morocco, I would say, is probably the most immersive overall, but it didn't open whenever Epcot did. So I think that out of all of the opening country pavilions, I think that Mexico is definitely the most immersive, and I think that's 100% fitting for Rhodey's start at Imagineering.
Yeah, I definitely think that Mexico is my favorite pavilion.
Well, we all know it has La Cava, so therefore it's
It does.
automatically the best.
I ate at not La Hacienda, San Angel Inn.
San Angel? How was it?
Yeah.
I've heard very mixed things.
So I went.
Fats.
It was like 5. I hated it, and when I went in last January, it was really fantastic, and they gave me like way too much. It was really good.
Wow, nice.
Very impressed. Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, he worked on the refurbishment of Fantasyland at Disneyland. Another thing that makes a lot of sense for him in terms of the placemaking. The placemaking of Fantasyland at Disneyland, I think, is very understated in how well it works and how well it all comes together, that European village of it all, with the Matterhorn as the backdrop.
Yeah. Everything that he does is very immersive and very, I mean, even fantasy, it's very culturally accurate to what the story, what countries the stories are based off of. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's sort of Rhodey's kind of calling card, right? Like, we're going to do like ridiculously immersive areas that, you feel like you're actually there. And I think that you can tell from his career track that is, he started out with that strong foundation and built up to it with, some of his more significant projects.
So speaking of significant projects, after working with Captain EO and then also the Norway Pavilion, both very, very cool projects unto themselves, he gets what I consider to be the predecessor to the Crown Jewel, the Adventurers Club.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is like the first big step for him.
I would say so. I would say this is the thing that put him on the map in a lot of ways.
Absolutely, and I absolutely adore the Adventurers Club.
I do too. The Adventurers Club, they need to bring it back. It's one of those things where it absolutely haunts me that I wasn't old enough to do it when it was in its prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously I never went either, but seeing, pictures and hearing stories about the Adventurers Club, I mean, it was groundbreaking stuff whenever it opened. I mean, it lasted for about
still
30
groundbreaking
years.
in a lot of ways.
Exactly. It's that, people talk about how like Galaxy's Edge and the Cantina is like setting the bar for interactive stuff. I'm like, no.
Trader Sam's, if anything, is setting the bar, but even Trader Sam's is like a teeny tiny version.
Exactly. It doesn't compare. And for Rhode to be on as one of the lead designers for it, he had done some important projects, but this is like the first thing where it, at least from what I can tell, is that he's like
from the ground up, it pretty much has his fingerprints all over it.
Absolutely, and you can see that he's already learned how to design these really immersive areas, and whenever he's gotten to this point, because he makes a really immersive area in Adventurers Club, and then carries that knowledge over into Animal Kingdom.
All right. So speaking of which, Animal Kingdom. Oh boy, where do you guys even want to start here? Can we start with the Oasis? I think that's a good starting point. Naturally.
Oh, yeah, that's the front of the park.
Okay, right. So I think the Oasis, to this day, I can just talk blue in the face about how effective the Oasis is as an opening land. The winding pathways, the fact that like you can kind of get lost in it. The fact that you never quite know exactly what animals you're going to see in it. And then, of course, the slow, gradual, but majestic reveal of the Tree of Life, which I think is cinematically the greatest opening shot of any Disney park. Like, I think it beats out the train station view from Main Street. Just in terms of, like, the majestic reveal of it all. Just like, bam, there it is, like, over the hill, over the horizon. Just that alone says so much about Animal Kingdom, and that's just the opening scene. And then Animal Kingdom, even in its infancy, I should say, not infamousy, even in its infancy, just Africa, Asia, Dinoland USA, for as wacky as it was, still had a very, very, very established and eclectic backstory behind it. Asia was just cutting edge. We'll get to Everest in a minute, but Africa with Kilimanjaro safaris, with the whole theme of the town of Harambe and the real building there. I mean, there's just so much going on within Animal Kingdom, and it really is the Disney park. Like, I know that Tokyo Disney Sea is probably more immersive than Animal Kingdom. I'm willing to guess, but I am, God willing, I get there someday. But
Same.
Yeah,
right, Evan. You'll never get there, Evan. You'll never.
I'm so angry.
Wow.
It's such a pipe dream. It's such a pipe dream.
8 hours north and I can't go.
I know. You'll get there eventually, buddy.
I know. Vaccines March. But yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, the Animal Kingdom is really fantastic. I think that Tiffin's is a really good.
Don't remind me of Tiffins. Don't remind me of Tiffins.
I'm sorry.
I decided to go. I decided to spend half the money it would have taken me to go to Animal Kingdom to go to SeaWorld instead, and I lost out on my Tiffins reservation. But you know what? I would have had to pay even more money at Tiffins.
So are you going to Animal Kingdom at all?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, so if you ever go to Animal Kingdom again, go to the Nomad Lounge. It's right next to Tiffins. It's the same building. That's where I went. And it has a really great tapas menu. The drinks are fantastic. But the restaurant as a whole is a really good like thesis for the park in general, where it focuses a lot on like the world, like the cultures of the continents and countries featured in Animal Kingdom, and the design philosophies behind the park as a whole.
No, I've seen the inside of Tiffin's, like in terms of, you know, I've seen videos like walking around it. It's, man, that alone is like the saddest reason I had to cancel Animal Kingdom. But no, right now the plan is to do 2 days SeaWorld, 2 days at Magic Kingdom, because frankly, I just think Magic Kingdom, by all intents and purposes, is the park that's handling COVID the best.
Yeah, that's fair.
Probably.
And then 1 day at Gatorland with Disney Springs for dinner.
Mm.
All right. Anyways, back to this. So, I'm sorry. You guys have anything else to say about Animal Kingdom as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really fantastic, the whole park.
Yeah, I think that the idea behind it. I mean, you know, this isn't just like Rhode designed it all. Like, I mean, this was his idea from the get-go. Yeah. And you know, a lot of people wrote it off initially as, oh, it's just an overpriced zoo, and it's like, no, you go there and you see
Goofy. Don't you know? Haven't you heard, my friend? Haven't you heard? It's not a zoo.
But I mean,
go ahead.
It's like you bring in these animals and you create these stories about the people around the animals. Like, it's not just telling the story of animals. Like, you look at Harambe in the Africa section. I mean, the storytelling that goes on in there, and I know that Rhode has a segment in the Imagineering story where he talks more about it, but you know, for them to design with this much depth, everything, I mean, it's really impressive. But one thing I wanted to mention is you talk about Rhode as an Imagineer overall, and one of the things that I always think of whenever I think of Rhode is the way that he got Eisner and the Disney board to approve Animal Kingdom, because they all wrote it off as, oh, this is just a zoo. You know, nobody's going to want to be, everybody's fine, you know, with being far away from animals. There's not really an appeal to it. And so he brought in a live Bengal tiger into a meeting with Michael Eisner, like, to convince him that whenever you're up close to this animal, it evokes an emotional response and makes you feel stuff. And I'm like, the sheer balls on Joe Rhode to go and do that. I mean, honestly, you got to think, he's been at this company. Sure, he's been at the company for about a decade or so, but still, I mean, to be so sold on this idea that that's how you go about convincing the CEO that they should go with it. I love that story, honestly. I think that
it's amazing.
It goes to tell you how driven Rhode was and how convinced he was that this was a solid idea.
Right, and of course, that opens him up to the first really big, just kind of grand scale e-ticket attraction that he was involved in, Expedition Everest. Oh my God. I mean, this, I feel like, would it be fair to say that this is Rhode's masterpiece, attraction-wise?
I would say that...
Maybe?
I'd say Flight of Passages.
I don't know about Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage is great, but this is just top to bottom, just... There's no IP involved, it's just pure creativity, it's just the backstory is just so incredibly rich, the way that the mountain interacts with the rest of the land and kind of, like, carves the land out into, like, mini segments. You know, just the culture surrounding it, the pace of the ride itself, I think, is absolutely perfect. I honestly think it's just, genuinely speaking, it took everything that worked with Big Thunder Mountain as a family coaster and just made it bigger. I don't know, man. There's a lot about that attraction that I have just really grown to love.
Oh, no, I agree with you. It's a phenomenal attraction. And it is a great, it's fantastic storytelling from the queue through to the end. I don't know. I just think that I feel like with Flight of Passage, and I'm sure we'll talk more about Pandora in a little bit, but I feel like the ground that was broken with Flight of Passage is a little bit more significant, in my opinion, than Everest. But it was definitely his single greatest attraction to this point in his career, because you think about Animal Kingdom, whenever it opened, the Kilimanjaro Safaris was the main attraction, and that took obviously a whole different level of detail and skill and everything to craft this safari and make it feel convincing in Central Florida. But I still think from like an attraction standpoint, to this point in Rhodey's career, Everest was definitely the peak attraction. No pun intended.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Then is this the point where he kind of branches out to do the Tower of Terror at Tokyo Disney Sea? I want to kind of keep it roughly chronological here.
Tower of Terror, I always think, I don't know. I thought it was before, but it might not be.
I think it is Tower of Terror and then Aulani.
Okay. Aulani, I don't have much to say. I mean, I'm sure it's wonderful. I'd love to visit someday, and it's cool that he's a local Hawaiian. So he grew up on Hawaii, so that he'd know how to design it. But just generally speaking, honestly, with Aulani, I've kind of been saving it for myself just because I do want to go there one day, and I don't want to be like exactly I don't want to know what's there to a certain extent, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
But I mean, I'll obviously look up what's there, but I don't want to like know all the little ins and outs. Anyways, so yeah, I guess Tower of Terror at Tokyo Disney Sea, I think, is it's a great example of what Joe Rhode can do, and of course he does this again with let's just take the time let's just kind of like end out on Pandora, and we'll take the time to go into his two big Tower of Terror attractions, which are the Disney Sea version and then Mission Breakout.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, so Tokyo Disney Sea, of course, like, exterior-wise, I remember being completely blown away when I first saw exterior photos for Disney Sea's Tower of Terror. Do you guys remember the first time you saw it?
Yeah, no, it's very
how
striking.
Super detailed it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so aesthetically different from any of the other ones. I mean, the first time I saw pictures of it was obviously before Mission Breakout was a thing. There was still Tower of Terror in California Adventure. But no, it's just so different from everything. And then whenever you think about the context of where it's placed within Tokyo Disney Sea, it like fits, like the architecture fits with the rest of the American section really well. But it's very much a really standout thing, even more so than just being like 200 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's see. And then we have Mission Breakout, which I think Mission Breakout just gets better and better with age, honestly.
Yeah, I've still never been on it, so...
I think Monsters After Dark does a lot for it.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
Monsters After Dark is honestly my favorite Halloween overlay ever.
Yeah. I still love the concept behind it. I think that...
The fact that it's kind of a space shot as opposed to an S&S drop tower.
Yeah.
I love that. That's probably one of its most unique elements.
Yeah, I think the attraction's fantastic. The exterior of it's so distinct. It really looks... I mean, it looks incredible on the outside, and then the storytelling in it. And honestly, it's one of those attractions where it's like, okay, so I went out there, out to California last year to go to Disneyland and go to California Adventure, and I'd been to Disney World several times before, and I went there just with my mom, and my mom had never ridden Tower of Terror before because she's always been nervous that it's going to she's not going to like the up and down drop motion of it. But I convinced her to go on Mission Breakout, and she told me afterwards that she was having so much fun on it that she forgot about that she was going up and down, that she was and that's the thing with it, is like it's just such a fun attraction that it's like it's one of the best attractions that I've been on like recent attractions that I've been on, just from that point of view.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Right, and then of course that leads us into Pandora. I mean, I think this is just the ultimate example of Imagineering. Kind of like they might not necessarily like the ingredient that they've been given, but god damn it, are they going to create the best dish they can out of it?
Yeah, no, like for Joe Rhode.
Pandora is just amazing. It gets better and better every time I go there. Just I get more detail out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for Joe Rhode very publicly disliking Avatar, like they did exceptionally well in building Pandora.
Yeah, I mean, I just love everything about the conception of that land. It just, first of all, I honestly, this might be a controversial statement. I feel like it's getting less controversial these days, though. I honestly think that it might fit into the park better than Beastly Kingdom eventually would have.
I mean, we don't know that. I still think that Avatar is kind of jarring for Animal Kingdom.
Oh, I don't.
But the land is fantastic.
Yeah,
I don't
really
brain at all, just because I feel like it fits into the conservation themes of the park.
No, the message absolutely does,
right.
But it's kind of jarring going from Africa to Pandora.
That's my thing, is that thematically it works perfectly, and that comes in large part to storytelling that they do throughout the land. But it's very jarring compared to. I realize, it doesn't have the same transition that Galaxy's Edge does.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Especially when Tiffin's is right at the bridge into Pandora.
Right. It's like it's like they're trying to make you feel like you're simultaneously still in this jungle area and on Pandora.
Yeah.
Which is like it still works fantastically as a land, but it's still and thematically within the park. But I just think that it is a little odd and jarring to go into that. I'd say that it's one of the more out of place lands that I can think of off the top of my head, as far as like a transition goes, compared to most other parks, at least domestically.
Mm.
Well, why don't you tell us about how much you love Flight of Passage, then, Goofy?
Okay, the first time I rode on Flight of Passage was two years ago, and I spent a year and a half avoiding, watching anything related to Flight of Passage, because I knew that this was a special attraction and it was going to be something that I really wanted to experience firsthand. And the first time I rode it, I was very close to tears, because it was just the way that I've never felt so immersed in anything as I did that. You could say with Rise of the Resistance, that's a different kind of immersion, but just with a screen and you're on a little bike basically.
The smells, the motion, how crisp the 3D is.
Feeling the Banshee breathing.
The breath, yes, absolutely. The mist that's just spraying in your face.
It's incredible. Like, even the way that you're, like, the pre-show's cool and everything, but like, I think that it's really interesting the way that the attraction starts with like the lights in your face.
That's my favorite moment of the whole attraction.
It's so cool. Like the first time it happened, like I said, I wasn't expecting it at all. I thought, oh, they're just going to pull this up and we're going to get started or whatever. And then whenever the lights came up, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden, you're there. It's honestly, I don't have any flaws or faults with it. I mean, you could say, well, I don't love that if I'm trying to pull myself away from the show, I can look to my right or up or down and see other riders. But it's like, well, how else are they going to design it, You
have to be actively trying to look at them, though, as opposed to Soarin', where they're just blatantly there.
Right, exactly. I think that this is just, it's just so immersive, and it's like you don't want to be taken out of it, because and it's like with a screen that large, they're able to do so much stuff. Every single time I've ridden it, I've probably ridden it 5 times. Every single time I've ridden it, I've seen stuff that I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The whole ride's fantastic, and yeah, like, I don't even like Avatar, but I really love Flight of Passage.
I feel like some of the biggest fans of the Pandora Land are people who don't necessarily like Avatar.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love Pandora and Flight of Passage, and I think I've seen the movie twice. I watched it before I went to Pandora for the first time, just because it's so boring. Honestly,
it's not a good movie. But
I feel like Pandora, the world of Avatar, is tanked by not having a Jake Sully walk around character.
Yeah,
I need my dull 2009 circa like emotionless action movie star, guys.
Jesus.
Having said that, a Commander Quaritch walk around character I could get behind.
Well, I mean, they do have someone walking around in one of those suits, don't they?
Yeah, but
it's not Quaritch.
Oh no,
which is okay actually. I think that fits the story really well though, because it's different than Galaxy's Edge. It's different from Galaxy's Edge, where you're actively involved in the story of Star Wars, versus whenever you're on Pandora, it's supposed to be way after the events of Avatar and everything.
Yeah,
so
Pandora, you're literally just
Avatar is a documentary in Pandora.
Yeah, basically. I that's something really cool that I think they do really well, like with Satuli Canteen and stuff like that, like the repurposing of stuff, it making it really look like, okay, so this land was here, and then people came and built over it, and now the land has sort of retaken its place. Like, I think they do that really well.
I'm just gonna float the idea that I had for the Avatar land, not Pandora, but the Avatar: The Last Airbender land. I when they build that eventually, because they have to. Like, they have to build something with Last Airbender. I mean, it's just like, it's a creme that they haven't yet.
Who owns the rights to that? Like, to...
Nickelodeon does.
To
be Universal.
Oh, okay.
So, you know how Pandora, we have the groundbreaking photo of the giant Navis with a big shovel?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see a groundbreaking photo where it's just earthbenders just breaking the ground. All right, anyways. So
I will say, like, I think that Avatar Land might be even more successful than Galaxy's Edge at making the land look lived in.
I would say so. My problem with Galaxy's Edge in terms of the lived-in nature of it is it's hard to escape the feeling that you're in a very well-themed mall.
Exactly. Yeah. Where Avatar Land feels very natural. Everything feels like what is there happens naturally and normally.
Whereas with Galaxy's Edge, like, after the past couple times, it's like, oh, all right, the stormtroopers are on their rotation. There's Chewie. It's like everything kind of feels a little bit artificial once you know what to look for in Galaxy's Edge, if that makes sense.
I still love Galaxy's Edge.
Oh.
But I think that Avatar Land strikes that balance a little bit better.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that they did go... It feels like they went harder in on trying to make Galaxy's Edge feel like you're part of the movie, and part of the films. I know that they created, an original world and everything, but still, it does feel like the goal of it is to make you feel like you're in the movies, and they do it very well. It's just that I do prefer Pandora thematically, just from the way that the way that they do it is that you're in a completely different time frame from anything else that's happening, and I think that Galaxy's Edge is going to... I've heard stuff that they're planning on going and changing the lands as time is supposed to progress or whatever. I have no idea how that's actually going to work. But I do, like I said, Galaxy's Edge has tons of fantastic elements. I'd say Flight of Passage and Rise of the Resistance are probably my two favorite attractions that I've been on. But I think from a thematic standpoint, also having Rhodey as the guiding figure for Pandora does help it a lot. And from the land isolated, I think that the transitions to Galaxy's Edge are better than to Pandora, but yeah.
All All right. Well, any final thoughts on Rhodey as a man, as a creator? Are we gonna miss the earrings? Is Peregrine actually Rhodey?
Yeah.
Little inside joke.
Check out his Instagram because it's super insightful.
Yeah, I love his Instagram page.
His Instagram gave me appreciation for Animal Kingdom.
You didn't have it before?
Well, no, I was never really like a huge fan of Animal Kingdom, but he did like for like a month or two, he did like a point by point breakdown of every.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's been going crazy since. Yeah, he's been going crazy in the past year on it. I've loved it. Honestly,
Yeah.
I would say that anybody who wants to learn more about how to be a good designer, a good armchair Imagineer, maybe wants to be an Imagineer in the future, one of the best things that you can do is to just listen to Imagineers talk and read what they have to say. You know, there are a lot of great books out there written by Imagineers like, you know, John Hench and stuff like that. But Rhodey is one of the most. Whenever I went to California last year, I was out there for the D23 Expo, and I got to see Joe Rhode at a panel, and what he talked about, you know, it was about world building, and it was just like really inspirational, and just the stuff that he talks about, you can tell how passionate he is about the stuff. And I do think that that's one of the best resources for people just in general, you know, if you want to learn more about the parks or learn more about designing or anything, but also it shows how incredible he's been for the company. And I think that WDI is going to miss him in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for listening to this brief but hopefully enlightening career retrospective on the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Rhode. We're going to miss the earrings. We're going to miss the personality. But most importantly, we're going to miss the passion. And I do hope that in the future, Walt Disney Imagineering continues the quality that they've put out there in the last decade. Because I got to admit, I am worried about stuff like Adventures Campus. We'll see how that goes. But I am stoked for Guardians of the Galaxy, so there is that. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting couple of years for Walt Disney Imagineering, especially without Rhodey.
Yes, it will.
All right, y'all. Have a good night.
Goodbye.